Hey, I'm back. So I apologize if I missed people's questions. I kind of tend to get behind a lot. And I start to realize how behind I am towards the end. But yeah, definitely ask your questions again if I didn't get to them. And it's not that I'm ignoring them. I don't see them as they come in because I'm way behind. You guys know that. So yeah, disclaimer, remember, everything in this live is not medical advice. We're just chatting, and I want you to do your own research and make sure you do what's right for your body. Where do you get ox bile? You can get ox bile on Amazon. I think the brand's called Nutricology. I also like, what's it called? There's a supplement by a brand called NutriKey. It's called Bile Builder. It has some ox bile, has some taurine, has some other things that are really good for both the liver and the gallbladder. So that is another supplement that I really like. What are the health benefits of wild rice? Oh, dude, wild rice is so amazing. It's like such a nutrient-dense food because it's very ancient. It's very different than other grains that have really been cultivated and are not as ancient as wild rice. Wild rice is something that we would cultivate in the wild and consume in the wild. It's super gut supportive. It's a very amazing prebiotic that actually feeds certain bacteria in the gut. It's actually a lot higher in protein. We can absorb a lot of the protein in wild rice. It's a great source of carbohydrates. It provides a lot of energy. Personally, I think that wild rice is a great source of carbs, especially when you cook it in bone broth slowly. Man, and it's so good. Like, it's so good to chop up some mushrooms and some onions and put some spices in there and some bone broth and just let it simmer and completely cook. It takes a while for it to cook. So it's not like regular rice where it just kind of like absorbs all the water and it's done. It takes a while for the outside to actually crack and then to absorb the water. But it's super beneficial. It has like lots of antioxidants, but it's mostly going to be gut beneficial, and then just like the carbohydrates and the proteins and the nutrients in it. Because it's really absorbing a lot of nutrients from the soil, which is awesome because, you know, it's kind of like a mineral bomb. My period is every 30 to 32 days. Is that abnormal? No. I think longer cycles are a little bit better than shorter cycles, honestly. Anywhere from like, I personally, this is my personal take, anywhere from like 27 to 33 days is going to be a little optimal, more optimal, as long as it's staying pretty consistent. If it's jumping from like 26 to 33 to, 24 to 32, that's another story. But if it's pretty consistently around like the 30-day mark, it's fine. I think technically, like according to the Gynecology Institute, it's like a normal cycle is anywhere from 21 to 35 days. What do you think about probiotics? I like probiotics, but I like specific probiotics. A lot of people do a lot of damage to their digestive systems by taking probiotics long-term they shouldn't take, and they actually cause more problems. I only really like spore-based probiotics long-term, like Just Thrive or Megaspore. There's some other ones like Life Extension's bacteriophages or things like that, but you really want to take probiotics only as long as you need them. And that's kind of like the thing. Like, I don't really want to take probiotics longer than I need them. Hi, are there any online programs, schools, courses you would recommend to be a certified holistic nutritionist or anything in the field? Honestly, there's not a lot out there that teach things that are accurate. I hate to say that, but it's true. Most of my expertise comes from my personal research and my experience. When I went to school, I was trained pretty conventionally or traditionally in like with the Western the kind of like Western Eastern principles. So I was taught like low carb and paleo and more vegetarian and vegan, lots of vegetables, sugar's bad, like all those types of things. And really my own personal research has really allowed me to really like flourish and continue and take what I learned and completely transition it. But I think like with anything, there's going to be problems. If I was to go to school, I think I would pick like the NTA Association, like a nutritional therapy practitioner. It's the most, I guess, like the most animal-based, which I think is important, but they do have like a lot of emphasis on like being low carb and, doing lots of cod liver oil and things like that. But I would say like I at least would want an animal-based certification. And that's what I would choose, like nutritional therapy practitioner. But functional diagnostic nutrition is also great. They don't teach a lot about the nutrition. They're more focused on like the clinical side of things, but they're really good as well. They teach a lot about the endocrine system. So those would be the two that I would do. Like if I was going to go do school again, it would be NTP, like become an NTP and do functional diagnostic nutrition. What's the best way to tell when you ovulate? To track your cycle using a temperature or a thermometer. So there are like basal body thermometers you can buy on Amazon really cheap. There's also one that's like, I think like $40 called a thermometer that goes with an app that actually will tell you when you're ovulating. So remember, when you ovulate, you start to make progesterone about 24 hours later. And so once you start to make progesterone is a thyroid stimulator, right? You're going to see your temperature spike and stay high for as long as you make progesterone. So usually that's going to be about 11 to 14 days. So as we track our cycles from month to month to month, we usually ovulate around the same day of the cycle, every single cycle. And we start to know like, oh, I ovulate on day 12 or I ovulate on day 11. Now you want to use other markers as well. You want to be looking at your cervical mucus because remember your cervical mucus will get nice and egg whitey and stringy. The purpose of that is so that sperm can easily move where it needs to go. And then your cervical position as well will tell you a lot about where you are in your cycle. So Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Toni Weschler is a great resource, kind of like a fertility awareness method Bible to really start to learn to track your cycle. Hi Jess, hi Virginia. Question, any recommendations for postpartum vitamins or supplements? I have PCOS if that's helpful, 37 weeks, yay! Yay, I think it's just really important to kind of replenish the body. Minerals are really important postpartum, things like sodium and potassium and magnesium. But normally postpartum, it's really just kind of determining where you're at and starting from square one or the beginning, so to speak, because you really want to take in how you're doing. Usually I would wait till like 8 to 12 weeks postpartum because you're gonna be like really lacking sleep for a little while there when you have a new baby. And so oftentimes like stressors are gonna be really high. So the biggest thing is gonna be just making sure you're sleeping, making sure you're eating enough, making sure you're eating regularly and keeping blood sugar balance, especially if you decide to breastfeed. And then I like things like grass-fed beef liver, vitamin E, magnesium, sodium and potassium. Like all those things are really supportive and good for any situation, but especially if you're going to be under stress or maybe not sleeping enough. What B vitamin brand do you recommend? Personally, I use grass-fed beef liver. So I think that B vitamins should come mostly from food. Sometimes like Thorne's Stress B complex can be helpful, but I try to stay away from synthetic B vitamins as much as possible, or just focus on certain B vitamins like niacinamide, for example. But grass-fed beef liver is a great source of B vitamins, as well as like grass-fed beef. Would you recommend still eating 3 times a day every 3 hours if you wake up super late, like 2 p.m.? Feel like I'm forcing myself to eat dinner at 10 p.m. I don't recommend waking up at 2 p.m. mostly, and that's not to be judgmental. It's just more to say like it really messes with our circadian rhythm. It's a really good idea to wake up close to when the sun comes up and go to sleep when the sun goes down, a couple hours after, because that's going to really affect our digestion. It's going to affect our hormones. It's going to affect everything. And so it's a really good idea to kind of have a circadian rhythm when it comes to food and your schedule. But yeah, of course it's going to change based on what time you wake up. But that's why it's not a good idea to wake up at 2 p.m. because then your whole eating schedule is off. You're not able to nourish yourself as much. You're going to have to eat late into the night. Like it's just really not an optimal rhythm to be in unless you have to. What brand of wild rice do you recommend? I actually like Ben Belty's Wild Food Warehouse. You can buy it online. It's so good. It's so high quality. He uses his brand, employs people. Like it's just an amazing brand. But I also like you can get one at the health food store. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like organic wild rice. You can usually find it there. Also, is it a bad idea to eat dinner like 2 to 3 hours before bedtime in terms of digestion? Not necessarily, but blood sugar is going to be the thing that really takes a hit when we eat that far before we go to bed. Thanks, I have diarrhea with my SIBO and gut issues, so how do I get quick digestion without urgent diarrhea? I'm working on supporting my metabolism with ample nourishment. You know, when it comes to diarrhea, I know I should have asked, like, is it SIBO-C or there's different types of SIBO. But if you tend towards diarrhea, at that point it's just kind of like getting electrolytes in, and you know, getting rid of the bacteria is a good idea, at least lowering the bacteria. A raw carrot salad once or twice a day can be really beneficial. And then things that maybe like harden up the stool just a bit, like fruit fibers and root fibers and things like that. But yeah, you kind of have to just like work at it slowly. Gut issues are one of those things that's so difficult to unravel, because it's like we have metabolic issues, but we also have gut issues, so we have to work on killing bacteria a little bit, and then work on the metabolism, and kill bacteria a little bit and work on the metabolism. So, you know, you kind of have to find what works for you, and it can take some time. Trying to replace the zinc and copper content from Jarrow's Zinc Balance with something natural, oyster extract, bee pollen, pine pollen. Yeah, I mean, all those are good. Like oyster extract, definitely. And then the copper would be grass-fed beef liver. Grass-fed beef liver is probably the best source of copper. Chlorophyll has a little bit of copper in it, but grass-fed beef liver is going to be the best. Bee pollen is really rich in B vitamins. I like it. Just make sure you're not allergic to it, and it's not like cheap stuff. Like you want to get it from maybe your local beekeeper if you have a farmer's market or something like that. And then pine pollen is also a good source of things like that. Do you think supplementing with L-lysine and PCOS could be worthwhile? Any cons? I don't see any cons. It's just going to be kind of like antibacterial, antiviral, things like that. But I don't necessarily see, like, it's not like the first thing that I would choose. Should breakfast be eaten within an hour of waking, or is it best to eat whenever hungry? I think it should be eaten within 30 minutes to an hour maximum of waking. If we're not hungry when we wake up, we've got problems. Hi, Jessica. I cannot seem to cope with the inflammation I have in my body. My muscles, I do inflamed. I'm doing FN, but still it is so bad. Any suggestions to calm it down? I cannot tolerate aspirin. It's one of those things where I don't necessarily know what's driving those issues. There could be layers and layers and layers and layers. Is it gut issues going on? Is it heavy metal issues? Like, there's so many layers to inflammation. Usually I recommend doing less starch, so no grains, no beans, focusing mostly on easy to digest foods, making sure you're doing gelatin or some type of broth with every single meal. Like if you're doing muscle meat, making sure you're doing broth at every single meal. I'm doing a raw carrot salad at least once a day, maybe twice a day. I'm doing lots and lots of like Jell-O, but really sticking to easy to digest foods. Also working on muscle tissue, so making sure you're doing myofascial release, trigger point therapy, things like that. Magnesium, lots of magnesium chloride on the muscles. But yeah, you know, you have to kind of find the source of inflammation, and unfortunately it can be like so many different things. And so you know, to find what's going to truly work for someone's inflammation, you have to figure out what the source of their inflammation is. Do you have any background knowledge on seborrheic dermatitis on the scalp? Yeah, I used to have it personally, but I found that it has a lot to do with fungus. So it has a lot to do with like what's going on in the digestive tract. Personally, I found the best solution to be, first of all, cleaning up my products. I was also using a product that is now known to cause dermatitis. I was using Diva Curl, and that was a problem. It's definitely not natural, but it actually causes like sores on the scalp. So I switched to a clay-based shampoo Morocco method. I started doing apple cider vinegar rinses, like diluted, at least once a week. I also started taking like a spore-based probiotic, doing a raw carrot salad, making sure I was getting my magnesium levels up. Like once I started balancing what was going on internally, I began to see my dermatitis go away. I don't think I've had it. I used to only get it in the winter time, but I don't think I've had it in like 3 years now that I think about it. My doctor recommended to have a Dutch test, but recommended I come off thyroxine first. Would you agree? I don't know. Like, if you're going to continue to take thyroxine after the Dutch test, I don't know why you would want to see your body without thyroxine. Like, I would want to know what was going on while I'm taking this medication every single day. But if you're planning on going off of it, then yeah. But sometimes going off of a medication is going to cause your hormones to go all over the place at first. So personally, I think that's a kind of not a weird recommendation, but it definitely needs to be thought out. Hi, I have low estrogen and high testosterone. Also was told low progesterone. Should I wait to get pregnant? I don't know. I can't tell you that. Personally, remember, progesterone is important for IQ and baby's brain development. It's also important to carry a child to term. It helps prevent against things like preeclampsia and complications. So personally, I would never get pregnant unless I knew my progesterone levels were optimal. Oftentimes, if we have low estrogen and low progesterone, it's not that we have low estrogen. Our estrogen is aromatizing into testosterone, and because we don't have optimal progesterone levels, we are not mobilizing estrogen out of the tissues or the organs. And so getting our progesterone levels up actually helps balance our estrogen levels out. So I actually have a small mini class called Mend Your Cycle mini class that really addresses these issues and gets you started on balancing your hormones. Is reactive, sensitive skin a sign of something internal? My face gets very red easily, especially in the chin area. It could be like a sensitivity to heat, which of course is like thyroid related. It can also be histamine issues, like gut related issues, or it could just be stress, like cortisol and adrenaline could definitely like heat us up very quickly. I know you recommend eating whole foods, but if you had to choose a non-dairy protein powder, what would you choose? I hope I can have dairy one day, but right now my skin says no. I totally understand. I would choose Paleo Valley's bone broth protein powder. Or like some type of beef protein powder. That's always an option as well. Are there any long-term health concerns from having adenoids removed? I got mine taken out at a young age and I'm just curious. Personally, I think there's always going to be long-term health concerns for any removal of any part of our body, right? Even if it's unknown what those are, you know, the tonsils and adenoids, for example, are part of the lymphatic system. So if they're continually swollen, there was a reason why they were continually swollen in the first place, and removing them didn't fix the issue. It just got rid of the glands that were telling you there was an issue. And so, that's just my personal opinion. I do think that there can be some structural issues, breathing issues. So we always want to make sure that we are breathing properly. We're not breathing out. We're not mouth breathers. We're nose breathers. If we are mouth breathers, fixing that issue by wearing a nasal strip and wearing mouth tape. Working on, everything that we can. But honestly, if we had some type of removal of an organ, there's nothing we can do now, right? We just have to move forward. And so I wouldn't stress about if there is a problem, but if there does, a problem does become an issue, then you would maybe consider like, oh, maybe it's because I got these adenoids removed or whatever. Do you know where you could find good oysters? All the ones near me are in sunflower oil. I think you can order Crown Prince in olive oil on Thrive Market or on Amazon, or you just look for like fresh oysters, or like never overlook like local small shops, like seafood shops or butchers or things like that. Even if they don't have something for you, they might have suggestions. Because people that make meat their whole life usually know a lot more about meat than we do. What times do you usually eat then? I'm trying to help my sister with a good schedule, but she wakes up very late too. I wake up, it just depends on when you wake up. Like I personally wake up pretty early. I'm gonna wake up around 7 to 8 o'clock. Not pretty early. Like I used to have a early wake up schedule like 5:30 to 7, but now I find that I'm doing better around like 7 to 8. So I'm gonna wake up anywhere around then, and then I'm just gonna eat within 30 minutes of waking. I'm gonna eat either like a small snack or a true breakfast. If I ate a small snack, I would probably eat a full-size breakfast about 3 hours later. If I ate my full-size breakfast, I'll eat a snack probably like 3 hours later. And then just go meal, snack, meal, snack, meal, snack. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty important to create an eating schedule that's kind of with the sun. So if you can wake up at a decent hour and you're not sleeping till like 10, 11, 12, it's probably better off for your hormones. They say people with acne have less linoleum. Linoleum? Linoleum? Isn't linoleum like a flooring? Oh, linoleic acid in their serum, and that adding it helps acne. Thoughts on this, sebum? Personally, I think things like linoleic acid and things like that, those are just people reaching. They're reaching for what's causing acne. And personally, I would say that I've helped many women heal their acne without the use of linoleic acid. So if it was truly linoleic acid, how come like all the women that I've helped get rid of their acne has worked? I'm 122 pounds, 37 years old. What would be your range of grams of fat per day be? It's really dependent on your calorie intake. So let's say you're eating 1,800 to 2,000 calories. That's probably going to look around like 50 to 60 grams of fat. 25% is 20 to 25%. If someone is having a hard time losing weight at 25%, then you go down to 20%. And then if that's usually a good range. I don't really like to go like super low fat unless someone's really like obese almost, or very, very overweight, like 40 pounds overweight. But yeah, I think it's just important to understand if we're overweight, we have fat on our body, right? We have fat that our body's going to pull from if we're not intaking too much fat. But if we're intaking a lot of fat and carbs, it's going to lead to weight gain. We want to find a place where we're really perfectly feeling good, our temps and pulses are really good, and we are seeing our hormones really balance out. Anything you can recommend to raise testosterone? Mine is super low, which my OB said is attributed to breastfeeding, but I have no libido. Yeah, it's one of those things where if you're breastfeeding and you're not eating enough, like I would really evaluate if you're eating enough. Oftentimes testosterone is low because of stress. So are you eating enough when you're breastfeeding? Because our needs go up about 300 to 500 calories. And so if we're not eating enough, that can be a problem. Or if we're not eating enough fat, we do need more fat while we're breastfeeding. And if we're not eating enough high quality fats, like saturated fats, we can actually see our hormones struggle. Because remember, hormones, building blocks, cholesterol is made from fat. Did the mini class come out yet? Yeah, I haven't announced it yet on my stories, but it's in the link in my bio, so you guys can sign up for it at the link in my bio. It's kind of like an introduction into fully nourished principles. So I wanted to kind of give you guys like a kickstart, like 10 action steps that you can get started that are pretty basic, pretty easy to implement. Get started, get going. And then if that's, if you should make progress within like a month to 3 months. And then if you want to make more progress or you're ready for the next steps, then it kind of like will ease into fully nourished for you. But give the mini class a good like 4 to 12 weeks, especially if you're looking for some easy tips that are not going to be like a complete overhaul of your lifestyle. Can you share info on skin tags, causes, and treatment? Thanks so much. I personally think they are due to estrogen because when I apply progesterone to a skin tag, it always falls off or goes away. So I think that they have something to do with like estrogen or maybe inflammation or something. But now that I think about it, I do apply progesterone with vitamin E oils, so it could be something like lipofuscin as well, like some type of inflammation issue. Something in the vitamin E or the progesterone is helping with the skin tags, but I do think they're due to estrogen. Can you share info? Does a permanent retainer after braces cause heavy metal imbalance? How to help? It can, like there can sometimes be like titanium in the body due to a permanent retainer. I actually got mine removed because of that. It was causing some issues for me, and got one that I can put in and take out at night. It is a little bit more of a pain. I kind of wish I didn't, but I don't think it causes huge issues. I think it's more of like an accumulation, death by 1,000 cuts type of thing. If you are, sorry, my dog's barking and I'm not gonna let him in. It's one of those things where if you have other heavy metal issues, it's probably going to make them maybe slightly worse, but I don't think it's like the thing that's going to cause problems unless you've really overhauled your whole life and there's one thing that's remaining and it's that permanent retainer, then maybe it is a problem. But I don't really stress about it. Do you work with hypothyroidism? Yes, I personally struggled with hypothyroidism. Almost all my clients struggle with hypothyroidism. There's hypothyroidism in my bio. That is literally what I talk about 24/7. If iron overload causes acne, should we stop eating red meat? I'm in FN and breakouts have gotten so bad and I'm wondering if I need to lower iron intake a lot. Thoughts? You can sometimes need to lower your iron intake if you do have bad iron issues, but remember red meat has other things that are good in it. So what I usually recommend is doing your red meat like with a cup of coffee, even if it's decaf, because coffee can help chelate heavy metals or bind to iron and make the iron less absorbable. You can also do it with orange juice or some type of citrus because vitamin C is going to help our body utilize iron better. You might need some extra support, things like vitamin C or like probiotics? Are you doing a raw carrot salad? But vitamin C is going to be a huge thing when it comes to iron movement. But the principles in Fully Nourished do speed up the metabolism. So if you are speeding up your metabolism, you're getting your progesterone levels up. Theorize with me. If you get those two things up, you start to mobilize estrogen, right? And so when you're mobilizing estrogen, you're mobilizing iron, because what binds up estrogen in the tissues? Iron and copper. So oftentimes when you speed up that metabolism, you get those progesterone levels up, you get the thyroid function up a little bit, you start to actually mobilize things, and that's what's causing all of the problems. So sometimes something like a spore-based probiotic or some type of binder like Just Thrive IgG can be helpful to just kind of remove things. Shilajit is also very helpful for that. I really like Matt Blackburn's Panacea Shilajit for that. And you can use, I have a coupon code with him now. It's called, it's JAW 10, I think. JAW 10 or JAW 15, try it. I haven't rolled it out yet, but I did get a coupon code for you guys. So I think it's 10% or 15% off. I was asking about adenoids because I have issues with a possible deviated septum and have always wondered if the removal might have contributed. Definitely struggle with mouth breathing. Yeah, I think any type of removal of things in this area are going to cause breathing issues. What can you say to someone who depends on coffee to have a bowel movement every morning? Coffee stimulates the gallbladder, so sometimes it can help things move along, bile flow. But if you rely on coffee for a bowel movement, you might have some issues with minerals, maybe you have slow digestion, sluggish metabolism, that kind of thing. Or it could just be your body's kind of used to that. It's a stimulation of the bile. Please upload your live after. I missed the answer to my question. Internet dropped out. Dang it. It will be on YouTube for sure. I always just drop it into Dropbox and my assistant uploads it. Thoughts on magnesium bisglycinate. I have many magnesium deficient symptoms, but my stomach can only handle one pill, which is low dosage, I think. Yeah, I think it can be helpful. It sometimes needs to be a different form if you can't work up bowel tolerance, or it can just take time. But, we all have to start somewhere. Do you work with hypothyroidism people? Yeah, I do. That's literally what I specialize in. Hypothyroidism, PCOS, and fertility and recovery post-birth control. What to do about hair on my chin and my face. You might like the podcast episode I did with Matt Blackburn on Mito Life Radio. It was about PCOS, and we talked a lot about hirsutism, the hair growth on the chin and the face. But it really is a stress issue. Sometimes it's a thyroid issue, prolactin issue. We need to increase our progesterone levels. We need to increase our detoxification of estrogen. We've got to start to balance the body. What diet do you recommend for hypothyroidism? I'm actually looking for strengthening the body. I teach my clients how to eat in a pro-metabolic way. What do you recommend for a teen girl with acne, food-wise? It just depends on what's going on. I don't know what's causing her acne, so I don't know, but it's going to be basically what I recommend for most everyone. Make sure you're getting enough protein, make sure you're getting enough carbs from roots and fruits, make sure you're avoiding nasty oils like canola and soybean and safflower and sunflower. Make sure you're getting plenty of high quality saturated fats and eating a raw carrot every single day. Your dog is the cutest. Love when you post pictures of him. I'll definitely post more. He's such a stinker. Gosh, he is the death of me. Does dairy cause acne because it's worse when daughter eats dairy? It can if you have really bad digestive issues. It's not dairy causing acne. It's the digestive issues being, I guess, expressed with dairy. So it's also the type of dairy. Is she eating really high quality dairy, grass-fed dairy, or is it just conventional dairy with lots of additives like added vitamin A, vitamin D, lots of additives are in cheese, so make sure it's high quality. Thoughts on keto? Keto is horrible for everybody, but it's especially horrible for people with hypothyroidism. Is estrogen clearance most important right after ovulation, or should it be stressed throughout the cycle, especially because of xenoestrogens? It should be stressed throughout the cycle, especially if your symptoms linger into the follicular phase, but it should definitely be supported the day before you ovulate up until your period. It's most important right after ovulation. Good question. I talk about this in my new little mini class called Mend Your Cycle. It's all about estrogen detoxification and boosting your own levels of natural progesterone, and the link is in my bio to sign up. How do you fix low or no progesterone? You want to make sure you're eating enough. You're eating enough protein. You're eating enough carbs. You're eating fats from the right sources. You're not irritating your digestive tract. You have enough minerals. Your body's not under a lot of stress. I mean, it can go on and on and on. It's not about fixing it. It's about finding what's stressing your body out so much and getting rid of those stressors. What is Just Thrive IgG? Just Thrive's IgG is an immunoglobulin supplement that actually lowers your immune response. So a lot of people, sorry, I went out for a second. A lot of people have really bad, compromised, because of food allergies, their gut's compromised. And so immunoglobulins are usually concentrated from something like colostrum to actually help soothe the immune system in the digestive tract, the gut, and help your body kind of be in a less stressed out state. Because when you're constantly reacting to foods and you're reacting to, you have tons and tons of food allergies, your immune system is on a constant high and it's constantly stressed out. And so when you calm it down with IgG, it can sometimes actually help your body relax and get you out of a stressed out state if you have really bad digestive issues. It also kind of works as a binder and will bind to things like heavy metals and mycotoxins and stuff like that and carry them out of the body. It's really cool for mold issues. What can I do about dark hair on the face? When it comes to hirsutism or hair growth on the face, it's all about increasing progesterone levels and supporting estrogen detoxification so testosterone levels can normalize. What can you do to help someone with slow digestion? You work on speeding up their metabolism. So I usually cut out foods that are going to be really, really irritating to the digestive tract, like tons of raw greens. A lot of people are eating tons of salads and things that they think are healthy, like grains and beans and tofu and nuts and seeds and all those things. We cut those out. We get you eating pro-metabolic foods to speed up your metabolism so things start to move through your digestive tract. We also really support minerals. Oftentimes people are really low in potassium, which is needed for the nerve response and the nerve function throughout the digestive tract. Things like magnesium. We increase stomach acid, digestive enzymes. We're working on restoring function to the whole body. Can you have hormonal imbalance, low P, high T, normal E, as told by saliva test with normal insulin without an actual PCOS diagnosis? Yeah, you need certain things to be diagnosed with PCOS, and I believe the kind of guideline is if you're not ovulating or you're not ovulating regularly, you have polycystic ovaries, you have high testosterone on a test, or androgenic symptoms. So I think you have to have an intravaginal ultrasound to be diagnosed. But you can have normal insulin with PCOS. Haha, he is clearly worth it though because he's so handsome. Yeah, he's definitely crazy. My dog is a psycho. Generally, do need to eat less iron to help acne. I'm not sure my question got through either. Yeah, I talked about how you might need to pair it with things that help you utilize iron, like vitamin C, or you might need to drink it with coffee to help kind of lower the absorption of iron, but it could be other things because estrogen movement is going to move iron as well. Is oatmeal good to eat? I like it if it's sprouted and cooked, slow cooked, so it's easy to digest. How do you know if you need Just Thrive IgG? What are pro-metabolic foods? I highly recommend going through my feed, listening to my highlights. I talk about, this is literally what I talk about all the time. Pro-metabolic eating is my whole work. How do you know if you need Just Thrive IgG? I usually use it in protocols. So if people have really bad gut issues, they're actively moving heavy metals, things like that, I use it as a tool. But most people who have really bad gut issues do benefit from it. What do you think causes allergy shiners? My 5-year-old has them, but she has done nutritional response testing and no foods come up as sensitive to her. Sometimes if there's really black eyes and it's not from a food allergy, allergy response testing is not perfect. No food allergy test is. And so I always am going to experiment. If my kid, I used to nanny for a girl that had the worst shiners, and I knew that it was her. She had an almond milk habit, and so she was literally allergic to almonds because I would switch out, or we would work on drinking juice for a day, and she wouldn't drink almond juice almond juice is really what it is, for a day, and it would get so much better. And so sometimes it is an allergy, and it's not necessarily that she's coming back that there's an allergic response, or But it could also be other things, like, remember, liver issues cause shiners. Shiners, I'm calling them shiners. I should call them dark circles. Not sleeping well can cause dark circles. Detoxification issues can cause dark circles, things like that. Does she get like other things like rashes? I would be looking for other things that could possibly point to poor detoxification. Is coconut water a good source of sodium? No, it's a good source of potassium though. Sea salt is going to be my favorite source of sodium. Hi, how can someone be hypothyroid but have a fast metabolism? Fast metabolism is not necessarily like if you're talking about like according to your hair tissue mineral analysis. Fast metabolism, you can think of fast metabolism and slow metabolism as two different states of being. So a fast metabolism is someone that stays in this kind of fight or flight, stressed out response most of their time. They're in a sympathetic state constantly, that fight or flight. Whereas someone who has a slow metabolism has most likely been in that fight or flight state for some extended period of time, and eventually their body hopped out of that fight or flight state and went into a conserve energy state. And so many people who are in a hypothyroid state are in a conserve energy state. However, there are people who are very, very stressed out, and the stress is suppressing their metabolism. That active fight or flight state is suppressing their thyroid function. So a fast metabolism and a slow metabolism are different than your thyroid function. Metabolism is not just thyroid, it's also your adrenal function, your overall mineral balance, how your cells are creating hormones, ATP. And so it's important to remember that if you're in a state of fast metabolism according to like your hair tissue mineral analysis, stress is suppressing your ability to make other hormones, detoxify things, and depleting you of nutrients needed to make hormones and have proper thyroid function as well. So a fast metabolism is really just being stuck in a state of fight or flight, and you're actively burning through minerals. Whereas slow metabolism is more like you're in that state of conservation. And usually people who are in a state of fast metabolism are like, for example, using hair tissue mineral analysis, they're a fast 4, where they are on their way towards moving to a slow metabolism. Eventually, fast 4s always turn into slow. So they're almost to the point of being depleted where their body's going to start to conserve. And oftentimes when I'm working with someone with a fast metabolism, when we do a retest, we find they're actually eventually turn into a slow. Their body calms down and now they're just depleted and their body's slow. Everything is kind of slowed down. Thoughts on normal jasmine white rice with no added iron? Yeah, I like it. I like white rice if you tolerate it well. For some people, it really stops them up and constipates them, but I like it. I've heard you say it's hard to get enough potassium in a day. Do you suggest supplementing that or other minerals aside from shilajit for most people? Minerals start to get complicated, which is why I hate to talk about them just off the cuff, because a lot of people are like, oh, she said potassium is good, so I should take it. But a lot of people don't realize that if you supplement one individual mineral, since they all work together, you can sometimes cause bigger problems. I do like potassium, but I don't like to recommend supplementing unless you absolutely need it. There is this really good potassium powder that's made from coconut water called Hydration Mix by Bumbleroot. I like it because it's made from coconut water, but it does have 1,000 milligrams of potassium per serving. But I'm on the fence about supplementing potassium unless you really need it, and you have to supplement it with salt. As for shilajit, I like shilajit because it's kind of like a broad spectrum mineral supplement, has all the minerals. It's not something like you're supplementing a specific mineral. So I do like shilajit for most people. How to get feet and hands to not be so cold. Start eating every 3 hours. Make sure you're eating enough carbs, enough protein. Make sure that you are keeping blood sugar balanced. Are iron supplements bad for you? In my opinion, yes. I think supplementing iron is very dangerous. Most of us are iron toxic. The reason we're coming back anemic is because we're magnesium and copper deficient. That can cause our ferritin levels to be very low. Does a vitamin B complex pill cause constipation? It's possible. What else is in it? Because a lot of people are just like, oh, I'm taking a B complex. And I'm like, well, what's the levels of B's in it? Are they methylated? Are they not? What are the additives in it? This is why it's always better to stick to whole foods, guys, because supplements can really get sneaky very quickly. Where can I find your podcast on PCOS and hair growth on Face? Oh, check out Mito Life Radio, MITOLIFE. It's Matt Blackburn's podcast. I think it's on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the podcast places. And it's PCOS with Jessica Ash, I think. We talked about birth control a lot too. So is a slow metabolism better than a fast one? No, neither is better. We want to be somewhere right in the middle. We don't want to be a fast metabolizer. We don't want to be stuck in a fight or flight state. We don't want to be in a constantly slow and conservation state. We want to be in balance, you guys. We want our body to be able to jump into a fight or flight state when it needs to, but we want our body to also be in a rest, digest, relax state when it needs to. We want to be in the middle. We want our body to have an abundance so it doesn't have to constantly conserve. It can do what it needs to do, but we don't want to be stuck in this place where we're burning through minerals super quickly and we can't seem to catch a break either. We gotta kind of meet ourselves in the middle. Is ashwagandha a bad supplement for those with high testosterone? I haven't heard of any any contradiction between high testosterone and ashwagandha, but with adaptogens, you have to be careful because everyone's different and everyone's going to respond to adaptogens differently. Some people they work really well for, and then some people they don't work at all. What do you think about Mary Roos Nighttime Multi-Mineral? Lots of minerals in it. I personally don't know anything about that supplement. I like Mary Roos in most cases, but I just don't know what's in that supplement, so I can't speak to that supplement. If we can't afford to work with you right now, but want to know our mineral status, can an HTMA help at all without having you to read it? Yeah, I mean, it could help. I think it's one of those things where it just kind of depends. When you take an HTMA, you don't want to read it as it is. So personally, like for example, if calcium's low, you don't just automatically supplement calcium. Or if magnesium's low, you don't just automatically supplement it. So you don't want to read it as is or it can cause problems, but I think getting one done can be helpful, and then, piecing it together, doing your own research on it, absolutely. What about ancestral grass-fed thyroid pills? Do you ever recommend them? I know you recommend their liver pills, so I was wondering your thoughts. I like them. I think that they can be really supportive. Sometimes they can be too stimulating. There's a reason why our thyroid sometimes slows down, and just taking thyroid without making the changes we need to, without addressing why our thyroid slowed down in the first place, is important. But I think supplementing some thyroid can be helpful for some people. Benefits of 5-HTP and NAC supplements. I personally think that 5-HTP is absolutely poisonous. I would never recommend it to anyone, and it's pretty much like taking an antidepressant in my opinion. You might as well just take an antidepressant, and you can have withdrawals from it, the whole shebang. I do not like 5-HTP. As for NAC, again, not my favorite. N-acetylcysteine is usually used as a biofilm breaker. For a lot of people, they say it's a liver supportive supplement, like it's a glutathione precursor. Again, I don't really love it. There are other ways to support the body and support the liver and support glutathione production. So personally, I do not like 5-HTP. I think it can actually be dangerous for a lot of people. And then for NAC, I personally, it's kind of for me, it's up in the air. I personally like to use things like vitamin C, rich foods, grass-fed beef liver, high quality nutrition over supplements like that. Anything you suggest that is helpful for stress, like herbs you like that work for most people? Rhodiola tends to work really well for a lot of people, as does holy basil or tulsi. You can get it in a tea or in a supplement. Rhodiola, Wild Oregon Harvest or Oregon Wild Harvest, it's one of those two, has a really good supplement that's rhodiola. What else? Passion flower sometimes works okay for people, but I find rhodiola, holy basil, ashwagandha, and what's the other one that I really like? Ginseng can sometimes be very helpful adaptogen as well. So usually I recommend, if a client starts ashwagandha and they see some benefit from it, but they want to try another, they finish off ashwagandha and then they try rhodiola, and then they kind of see if that one works better for them. But it can take some trial and error, but usually rhodiola works pretty well for most people. If it's for sleeping and relaxing before bed, I like valerian, and you can actually get a traditional medicinals has a sleepy time tea with valerian in it that can be very helpful for sleep. What could be the cause of migraines during my period? Almost always it's estrogen. I highly recommend checking out my Mend Your Cycle mini class. I talk about, there's a whole lesson in there about how to work on detoxifying estrogen. I also have a free liver detox guide that talks about some ways to really help support the body's detoxification. Why is vitamin A good for? Vitamin A is essential for making hormones. If we don't have enough vitamin A, we can't make hormones. So vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin that is imperative for overall function. It's also very healthy for the skin cells. Skin cells need vitamin A in high amounts for proper keratinization and things like that. We want to make sure that we're not supplementing vitamin A unless we absolutely know that we need it, and we're supplementing whole foods vitamin A. I do not think vitamin A supplementation is safe unless you know that you need it and you've been told that you need it. It's way better to get vitamin A from things like grass-fed beef liver or high-quality dairy. Vitamin A is essential for hormone function, but we got to get it from our nutrition. How do you get your body to utilize magnesium? Taking a lot but not feeling the effects. Oftentimes this is a sign of a boron deficiency, or we don't know our mineral balance, like we're really deficient in potassium and sodium, and so we actually need to get potassium and sodium levels up before we get magnesium levels up. So that can sometimes be a case, potassium, magnesium, or potassium and sodium. Sometimes it's a calcium issue, and sometimes it's a boron issue. Remember, we need boron in order to actually be able to retain magnesium within the cell. If we don't have enough boron, magnesium just leaks out of the cell. We lose it. And so that can sometimes be the case if we're not seeing benefits from magnesium. It's either not the right form, we're not absorbing it or utilizing it well, or we need other minerals as well. And that's why I really like hair tissue mineral analysis, because it actually helps you supplement for your specific body rather than just supplementing willy-nilly. Never had a thyroid blood test but feel I have an issue. Should I have my blood taken or just go straight to healing my body? It just depends. I mean, some people really need that blood test to tell them like there's something wrong. They need that motivation. Some people get a blood test and they are like, wait, my blood test says it's normal. I'm not normal. And so it's just like you're back to square one. You know you're not normal. So what does the blood test change? But if you have a doctor that's going to work with you and give you a blood test, I think that's great. But sometimes people don't have that, and so it's kind of like, what is the blood test going to change? Are you going to do something differently than if you didn't have a blood test? Personally, I think diving into healing your body, don't let a blood test hold you back from starting to heal. If you start to work on your body and you're not making the success or the results that you really want, then at that point it's like, okay, I need to test to see exactly what's going on, because something I'm doing is not necessarily working or not necessarily supporting me. All right, you guys, I made it to the end of the questions. Yes. So I'll do a last call for questions. If there's any questions that have come up about like the thyroid, I know there's been some questions about supplementation. You guys know I recommend getting as many supplements from food or nutrients from food as possible. I don't think being on stacks and stacks of supplements that you have no idea why you're on is a very good idea. They oftentimes cause more problems. Benefits of quercetin and who should take it. Quercetin is really good for lowering histamine. So if you are have allergies or things like that, it can be helpful for that. But I don't think quercetin should just be taken willy-nilly. It should be used for a very specific reason. And I find that people that have seasonal allergies do benefit from quercetin sometimes, but it's definitely not a favorite supplement, and it can be pretty estrogenic. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. These will be on YouTube either tomorrow or Friday. I mentioned NTA before. Yeah, Nutritional Therapy Association. Do you have a recommendation for water filters? Yeah, I would say Pristine Hydro is going to be the best. So if you can afford Pristine Hydro, like their travel filter, it's going to be the Mega King. A step down would be like an Aquasana, like reverse osmosis filter that adds minerals back in, or like Han or something like that. There is a brand called Clearly Filtered, and they have like a fridge filter that's a pretty reasonable cost. They have like a pitcher that's pretty reasonable cost. Of course, the smaller units are not going to get everything out of your water, but it's better than drinking straight tap water. AquaGear also has like a pitcher one if you want some type of pitcher, but again, remember, a pitcher or like a small fridge filter is not going to be the thing, like get everything like a reverse osmosis system does. But I personally like want a pristine hydro so bad. I have an Aquasana right now. I've had it for a couple of years. It works great. It's fine. But you know, once that takes a dump, pristine hydro all the way. I know it's an investment, but it's the water that you're drinking, and it's such high quality water. It blows everything else out of the water. Those people that created it are complete water nerds. Can you talk about iodine or next time, please? Yeah, I can definitely talk about iodine right now. I have time. I'm just checking because I hate getting cut off. Yeah, I have 10 minutes. When it comes to iodine, it's one of those important things to know that you are in a place where you can handle it. Iodine is so important. Of course, it's a nutrient that we absolutely need, our breast tissue, our ovarian tissue. But if we supplement it and we're really low in vitamin C or potassium or sodium or zinc or selenium, we can actually cause severe problems. And so it's just kind of important to like pay attention to how you're doing, how your body's doing. And of course, it's one of those things where you can supplement it, like just start very slow. And if you have any adverse reactions, you just stop. But I usually just go according to what Dr. Brownstein. I usually recommend diluting the 2% Lugol's iodine and starting actually with a diluted iodine and seeing how you do with just a 1 drop diluted. And then if you are still having problems with that, then you're probably not ready. If you can work up to 1 drop that's not diluted, then sometimes that shows that you might need it and you're doing really good on it. And you just pay attention to your energy levels and that type of thing. But really, I can't really speak on iodine supplementation because it's such an individual thing. Sorry, I gotta grab a charger. And for most people, it is not dangerous. For most people, it's beneficial. But for some people, they keep doing it because they're not listening to their body. And that's the problem. They continue to push it, and then they cause all these problems. So the biggest thing with iodine is that it requires TSH, thyroid stimulation, the cell. And if you raise your TSH levels too high, you're going to drive some hypothyroid symptoms. So you don't want to increase your iodine levels too quickly and cause straight up hypothyroidism or increase your thyroid antibodies. Sorry, I got to plug this charger in. So, you know, when you are using iodine, you've got to be kind of watching and managing your thyroid health. If you're getting a straight up goiter from it, you don't need it, you know? So most people are just kind of, they're not safe with it, and that's the problem. But yeah, like iodine is one of those things where you kind of just have to do your research and then try it out for yourself. When is the best time to do a coffee enema? Anytime. Like, usually I do them like during my luteal phase before I'm going to start my period because that's when I want to do them and that's when I need the most support. What about Berkey? The Berkey filter is okay. It's not going to, of course, get everything. It's not perfect. It's a gravity filter, but it's better than not having anything at all. Gosh dang it. I've had a problem with this one charger that said it was like, not going to have a problem. Any info on fatigue? I'm wasted, tired all the time. Fatigue is usually, it just really depends on the person. If you are fatigued towards 2 p.m., it's probably because you're not eating enough and you're not supporting your metabolism. You're not supporting energy levels. But some people have, you know, Lyme's disease, EBV, chronic fatigue, they have mineral issues, copper issues. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And so everyone needs to kind of get to the root cause of their fatigue. Would you suggest the NTP over functional diagnostic nutrition if you can't afford both? Yes, because functional diagnostic nutrition is not going to teach you like the nutritional part of things, whereas NTP will. Waking up tired after 9 hours, check your thyroid, look into thyroid function. I will definitely do a whole post on hyperthyroidism because I've gotten so many requests on it. All right, you guys, I'm going to cut you off just because I don't want to lose this live and my phone's about to die. But thank you so much for joining me, and I will be hopping on stories tomorrow for something special. See you soon.